and we um, uh, worked on various options. The option that we came up with obviously with recycling being the biggest issue and the downtown container being a big issue, was to have a 2-year agreement, and at the end of that 2 years, we could take a look at how the recycling was going and hopefully do away with the downtown container. So now I would certainly be open to a 5-year agreement with a reopener at 2 years, but I'm, I think there's a pretty strong feeling amongst the 5 of us that discussed this that a 3-year split of the downtown container costs is an extremely reasonable solution and is a direct response to the haulers' concerns raised by, there's other people from out of town that dump in that container. Well, then, as a response to the concerns that the two of you had raised, we came up with the idea of a 3-way split. I would be open to a 50, 25, 25 split or something like that if that's something that you want to formally or informally propose. But I really don't see it reasonable to for the city to absorb all of the cost of the downtown container, knowing that your customers, our customers, joint customers, were benefiting from the use of that container. You also have to remember is that the comparisons that I had done, which I had shared with you regarding the fuel surcharge anyway, is our fuel surcharge here is higher than many of the other communities, and and we're looking at I'm not sure what diesel is today, but gas is $3.19. So so I think we've offered a solution here that is very reasonable. I'm not real excited about recommending a 5-year agreement with the recycling issue and with the fuel surcharge. We don't know what fuel is going to continue to do, and I think what we've come up with is a reasonable compromise that keeps everybody accountable. So I think I know what's going on with the concern, and there's been some discussion based on the public testimony at the last meeting. There was somebody that wanted to put the contracts out for bid. I don't think that's necessary. We have to those who say that garbage service is a regular business, I say it's not. It's a regulated monopoly. That's what garbage service is. And not requiring garbage service on the utility bills means that we will have a spike in nuisances that I will end up having to deal with. And the dumpsters at Hills Park and local businesses will have even more rogue garbage than they already do. Most cities either have a municipal run service or only one contractor. Here we have the privilege of having 2 longtime haulers who can compete with each other and hold each other accountable. So the system here isn't broken, it's just rusty. We really haven't had a full-blown negotiation in the last number of years, and in 2018 there wasn't a city manager at the time, and there wasn't a full-blown negotiation. And so this is we're having a full negotiation, and I think this is a good discussion. So I think for starters today, I'd like to recommend that we see which of the haulers are okay with moving forward with this proposal as it is, and then we have Micah and I draft up the agreements and bring them back for more review. I'm certainly open to a longer contract, but again, I think the issue of fuel surcharge and recycling both come into play if you do that. That's my comment.
Any other comments that you begin with, Council?
Yeah, I guess with the fuel surcharge notwithstanding, because that's an element outside of our control. In regards to the recycling and the recycling container. It's kind of my impression, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're using this container as a means of supplemental recycling pickup, which would then be which we could provide and not have to come back to the bargaining table with weekly recycling. So if that is the olive branch, if that's how we can bridge that divide, I think that we're in the right place. And I know that you can't speak for your father, and I know that you're I feel like you're kind of caught in between here, Jeff, but I do feel like I would not be comfortable going out further than what the current recommendation is without having the assurances one way or the other about recycling pickup.
Just kind of like what I stated before, the dumpster really ain't an issue. The issue is who's going to pay for it. Now, the city has paid for it when it was one time, and we didn't have any grief.
Mm-hmm.
It moved up to 2 times, then we started getting some slack. Now that it's coming Christmas, it's going to be 3 or more. So and Dad ain't the only one. I agree with him. We shouldn't pay for the past administration's mess up. We were against it when they started it,
Against putting it,
to even buying it.
container there.
Even buying it. So there was other options we could have went to. They could have went to the bigger cans right away, but this is the choice they chose. So I don't feel that we should be financially responsible for it. I mean, I look at it as the city has an issue. Either it's working, there's people using it, so they either use it, pay for it, so be it. Or the city just gets rid of it and let us do curbside and not have it up there at all.
Any other words of wisdom? To that point, Jeff, we have had others that insist or are strongly encouraging that we do keep it there, and, you know, and it's...
But by us having it there, it is reducing your workload, right?
I don't know.
Well, and that's what I mean by having that kind of meeting in between there, that, you know.
Because it's gone down to once a week, I'm still down 40 customers on one route. And it's down, so I don't know.
Thought earlier you said 75 and 160 you picked up.
Yes, and before we started this, it was 275. 200 on one route and 75 on the other. Now I've dropped 40 customers on the one route. So, and like I said, granted, it rained. So, in all reality, my recycling's gone down. I'll welcome any of you to ride along with me. I ain't lying.
I thought you said it had gone up since you started publicizing this. Mark,
That's what he said
yours?
That's what he said last meeting.
Yeah, last
It's
meeting
gone
you
Yeah.
up.
said it's gone up.
You
Yeah,
did share that with us.
Yes, you did.
I'm Missy Gertler from DeKalb Disposal. Ours has gone up since we started this about 2 months ago. There's a lot more tonnage every week, and especially since the tonnage has gone up, Mark has emptied the recycle box a lot less, and we are willing to split the cost for the box to keep it there as an extra for somebody who's got a lot, or they're going to be gone for the winter and they want to get rid of their stuff before they come and it's not their week. I mean, there's all kinds of different reasons for that, for people to use it, and we're willing to split the cost. So that's where we stand on that.
I guess I see why wouldn't you? What does it really cost?
Ask him to come up to the mic.
Could-
This, if you have comments,
Just a minute, we should really have you at the mic for those that are listening in. Okay.
last time we were up here, I never said a word. I sat right there. Mark got up and said his recycling was up. I didn't say anything. I never came to the podium at all. So,
Okay,
If I could.
go ahead.
So I'd like to say this. So at the beginning of this discussion, we had one hauler who was willing to do a 50-50 split on the downtown recycling container. We had the other hauler who was willing to adjust the fuel surcharge to go down to a quarter instead of 50 cents, right? Yeah. So, and then so by going with a three-way split, that's less than what you'd have to pay with the fuel surcharge. So to me, we've come up with a happy medium, and it really doesn't. Your opposition, with all due respect, doesn't make a lot of sense, because we've come up with an option that's better than what you had asked for financially, and that's how it pencils out. So.
And I guess the people that I've talked to, there are some people that like having that container. On the other hand, there's a kind of a conflict of interest built in there. If we have a container out here that that the city pays for completely 100%, then someone, whoever was our vendor for the recycling business, could substantially offset their costs of doing business by encouraging people to put their stuff in here instead of putting it by the curb. And that's a kind of a conflict of interest built in there. And I'm kind of torn.
But not the one hauler's customers are not the only ones with exclusive access to that container.
I understand.
It's a matter of who's emptying the container. It's a matter of if the container should exist.
And maybe that's the point. Maybe the container should not exist. I don't know.
You know, I think we've taken a lot of good steps to communicate to the community that curbside is the way to recycle. And we're hearing reports that differ a little bit, but for the most part, we're seeing some movement in the positive, that direction. In my mind, I want the container out here to be gone as soon as possible, and people using curbside recycling as their replacement for it, plain and simple. And we don't have to worry about who pays for what and who's dumping what where. So what we want is we want the haulers to support a position to where curbside recycling is a positive and proactive service. And I think we're moving that direction with both haulers. So I don't want us to lose sight of that. I think there's good things going on there, and we want to continue to make that happen. And then we don't need the container out here at all. And so maybe what we need to do is to look at it from our perspective of incrementally phasing that thing out over time, and continue the positive communication and support of the haulers to transition it from there to the curb. And then in the end, the haulers don't have an extra expense. City doesn't have an extra expense, and the residents of Sheldon are able to recycle whatever they want to at the curbside.
I got in the middle of this. I got two questions that I don't, what would be the negative result? Has that been, was that discussed before I was around?
Of what?
Of removing the dumpster?
Well,
What is the negative result? What's the biggest argument against removing it?
Some would not recycle it.
That people who would normally recycle and either cannot or will not do it curbside will no longer be doing it, period.
That was my other question. Would people stop recycling and would they put more of that stuff in with the garbage, which is what we want to get away from, right?
Right.
We want the recycling, but laziness is involved, so it's easier to just throw everything together.
What is the cost to the city annually for dumping them? What has it been? What has the city been paying annually? Approximate even idea.
Be like 7,000 comes to my head.
Mark, you know it off the top of your head. I had it in one of my previous reports.
$300, so. So 7,500 a year.
$7,800.
$7,800.
Yep, $7,800 if it's dumped twice a week.
150 times 52 weeks. So.
But at $75, that's pretty reasonable to have it, should, you know. It probably takes Mark an hour by the time he loads it up, takes it out there, dumps it, brings it back. It's not bad. So I think it's a fair rate that he's charging us to dump it.
Yes.
A couple of things. One,
Sam's good.
Oh, that's all right, go ahead. Okay.
early on, we've had some people call me that said they were in favor of keeping it because it encourages people to recycle that aren't on routes, or maybe they're out of town or whatever. And I said, well, that's fine, but should the city pay for that?
Right.
I don't know, philosophical. I don't have that answer. I also got a phone call this morning from an individual that said he's sick of reading about it in the newspaper, and would we please get it done? It's worse than chickens, okay?
That conversation too.
So, whatever we're gonna do, let's move forward with it and get it done.
Well, let's not bring up recycling chickens anyway.
I think we have a zone for that.
Sam wanted to comment. Go ahead, Sam.
So, Jeff, I want to ask you a question, and you don't have to answer it. But here's my thought. What if we were to offer you a 5-year contract, the 25-cent increase each August 1 of that contract, so 25 cents each year for 5 years, and the curbside container, the downtown container would be gone after 2 years. For that 2 years, you would agree to a 3-way split.
We would, every week recycling then.
No, I didn't say every week. There's no every week.
If you took that away, then
Huh?
the next issue you get weekly recycling.
In 5 years, maybe. But you'd have a 5-year contract. So does that give you heartburn?
No, it doesn't, but I'll talk to Dad and we'll discuss it.
Okay. How do you guys feel about that? So I'll repeat it one more time. It'd be a 5-year contract with a 25-cent increase each August 1. The downtown recycling container would be gone after 2 years, and during that 2 years, there would be a 3-way split of the cost of the downtown container between the 2 haulers in the city.
Should we base it on 2 dumps a week? At Christmas, you got 4 or 5 times a week. That's Merry Christmas for the city.
Let's see what the council thinks of what I threw out there.
It would average out less. I mean, you have it in December, Christmas time, but January, February, it'd probably be a lot less.
Yeah. I would be receptive to a 2-a-week average.
If we can do it once a week, we'll definitely do it once a week. I mean, I'm not gonna do it twice just for another $75.
Yeah, a two.
Every 2 weeks, I'd be happy, so.
You guys, or your company just keep it at 5 and based on what he's had, or?
I sure would like to see a 5-year contract. I mean, like Dave said, you can't really invest in anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's a, recycling know it is.